another episode of Speak of the Devil. My name is Campbell. It's great to have you. Thank you all for tuning in live and chatting with us during the show. It is a very special show. Today I'm being joined by Andy Howl and Magister H. Gilmore. So let's bring them in and speak of the devil. How are you, gentlemen?
We're great. How are you doing tonight?
Awesome.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk about this. This is a project that is, well, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but it's a pretty badass little piece of work here, if I do say so myself, as I hit my mic out of the way. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you spending some time, some of your valuable time, and it was just wonderful that you were able to be together in the same studio. It'd be even better if I could get my ass down there and just do a live show, but that's just not going to happen right now. So, too many random things happening in life, especially with everything that just happened today. So hopefully, this is going to be a nice reprieve from all of that nonsense that we deal with on a regular basis. Let me give a quick shout out to everyone in the chat room. Again, if you want to interact with us, if you want to ask your own questions, do so. And as the conversation develops, I will try to reach out to the different questions and we'll get them answered for you. So Lilith, of course, it's very nice to see you in the chat room. Elizabeth, Matt, Christopher, Raul, Bruno, Demented One, it's good to see you, man. And everyone else coming in and out that I may miss due to the course of the discussion. So we're here to talk about The Devil's Reign. Now, we already have the release book that I just showed you. Gentlemen, can we do a little bit of background? Where does this project come from? What's the genesis here?
Well, Peggy and I come down to Fort Myers regularly for November into December. And when we were down here, we were getting ready to leave, and our good friend Thomas Thorne of the Electric Hellfire Club contacted us and said, I'm coming up to Fort Myers, and are you going to be around this weekend? And we said, well, actually, we were planning on heading back home up to Poughkeepsie in the Black House. And he said, well, but there's a Frazetta show. And I'm like, Frazetta? He's one of my idols. And some of the family members are going to be there. And it's at my good friend Andy Howell's tattoo parlor and art gallery. So we're like, sounds awesome. We'll stay extra days and come. And so we did. We met Thomas and his wife and son. And then we came over and saw the show and met Andy and Elena and had a great time with the Frazettas. Yep. And it was fabulous. Awesome. But we really hit it off. And Andy said before we left that he would like to do something. Yeah. And I kind of thought, well, that sounds awesome. We'll see if that happens. And he was persistent. Like he pursued me and said, okay, so what are we going to do?
I was open-ended about it. I was just like, yeah, whatever you want. If you want to just come and like say a bunch of stuff some night, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. But Peter has a good background actually in the gallery world, so.
Yeah, so we decided, we wanted to do an art show. And then I thought, well, perhaps the interesting thing would be to look at the idea of the infernal names for the Satanic Bible, because this is a way of preparing for the 50th anniversary of the Church of Satan, celebrating this pivotal book, and the subject of all the different international and historical avatars of evil that are in there that really represent human aspects that are usually kept hidden or taboo or repressed would be a fantastic subject matter for artists of all different kinds to respond to. So that was the theme. We made a list of it. And we also used the Lovecraftian deities as well, because those are in the satanic rituals. Yeah. And we put that out. We put out a call, and people responded.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of response from very well-known people that were very interested too. So it worked out, and it continues to.
Yeah, and part of the idea was that there would be a book that would have several pieces by each artist. So that way it wouldn't just be like disjointed. There would be a kind of continuity to it. And originally we were going to go with some other people to be the publishers of the book, but they kind of really weren't all that on board with what we were doing.
Well, they wanted more. They wanted more control, and that was fine. Yeah. They hadn't done anything with anybody else before, so I totally understand that. But it worked out for the best, because then we, took it over completely, and then I just owned it,
Yeah, so. and it was your first book,
right?
And it came out amazing. Like, Andy's an incredible artist, but a great designer.
I mean, I had laid out like catalogs and stuff like that before, but it was the first, actual book and art project that became a book, so that I've done.
What was the most challenging part of this first collection for you?
Probably the biggest thing was just making sure I got artwork from everybody, like making sure everybody signed off on the the book waiver. You know, if you've got a piece published in a book, you've got to sign off legally that you're approved that. And there were a few people that I had to wrangle a little bit to make sure they signed that off. I mean, overall,
so,
it was
started
fun,
as an exhibition, right? Or was the book the first?
No, it was
seed, or was
the
exhibition?
no, it was definitely just going to be an art show at first. But then I started talking to some of the artists in the book, specifically like Dave Burns, who's a really well-known Florida poster artist, and he kind of bounced that off of me a little bit, that maybe we should do it, maybe we should do it ourselves and not use a second party publisher to make it happen. So I had plenty of support, you know, from artists that are used to doing this type of thing. So, yeah. But yeah, it was something that came up like at least 1 or 2 months after the initial launch of the project between us, and.
Also because the artists would send several submissions. And we're looking at them going, well, there's a bunch of them that are awesome. Like, we really didn't want to we only have a limited amount of space, and we could only pick one piece per artist. But this way, with this array of gorgeous stuff, we could do, okay, we'll do 3. Right. So we'll pick our favorite, or one that maybe works better with the rest of the ones, and then we can have the other ones in the book. Yeah. So the book became kind of a monument and memorial and
larger,
larger.
It became larger than the show. And like some artists have a 2-page spread, you know.
Yeah. And the colors are great. You know, it's really kind of a diverse thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a learning experience. And the new book, you know, the small little things that I noticed in the first book, we have, I think, taken care of in the new one. So I'm excited to see it.
Nice. Well, before we get into that, I want to ask, how was this first one received? I mean, did it meet or exceed your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, it blew me away. I mean, I was like, when they finally showed up, it was like, oh crap, well, this is actually really nice. But I think it exceeded, and you know, I think it blew a lot of people away. Just not only because of who's curating it, but also because of the people that threw their hats into the ring, that are like, yeah, you know, and they maybe are not people that are normally associated with Church of Satan, but they're people that definitely have a strong affinity for it. And that is what I think is really powerful.
Well, the whole thing is, too, that tattoo imagery often has satanic aspects to it. It was something that was taboo and forbidden, and something that only outsiders were getting at a certain point in time. Of course, you know, after when that book that was done with research, Modern Primitives, showed people doing tattooing and piercing, and now it was arrived, and now it was a hipster thing to do. But you know, in the past, tattooing was really something that if you were a sailor or something, you got it to mark where you went. Right. And people were in different gangs, had specific tattoos, criminals. It was an underworld thing, the Yakuza in Japan. So the forbidden aspect of it was something that always is a satanic element to tattooing. Yeah. So we could really kind of go back to that and conjure the forbidden aspect of it. And I think that worked really well, because a lot of the artists who approached it went back to kind of older inspirations and modernized them in their own ways, and it really kind of covers the gamut of when it was forbidden to then it's become hip, and then now it's full-scale hard-on art that, you know, people look at it and treat it as an art object rather than just the decoration.
Yeah, the tattooing definitely, you know, works really well with what we're doing. You know, the two cultures are, you know, fit for each other.
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, because obviously this is your gallery, Andy. This is the original gallery show was at your studio. Yeah. Was the art supposed to be inspired by tattoo art with the devil tint to it, or was it just meant to tap into that devil vein?
Well, I mean, because we are a tattoo shop also, I mean, I've got pretty strong ties to the tattoo world, and you know, the art, rock poster art world and stuff like that. But I think just like naturally, the tattoo connection happened because there were so many really well-known tattooers that were also fine artists that wanted to be on board. So it just was, you know, the planets aligning.
Right, because it wasn't just Tattoo Flash we were showing. It was actually fine art pieces done by many artists who were tattoo artists.
I mean, we're talking about like the higher realm of the tattoo world that is like, you know, really good artists, you know, they're not just tattooers. They're also these are people that do gallery shows a lot of the time throughout the year, you know, which is part of their part of what they do.
And also, we got a lot of submissions from people who are in the Church of Satan too, who are inspired, of course, by Anton LaVey and his work, and who are artists, and they submitted work, and so it became this kind of coming together of these different aspects of people who aren't tattoo artists, but who are some members who are. So it was just a wonderful mix of things that came together for it. Because some of the pieces we had were more conceptual. Like they weren't so tattoo oriented. They were actually think pieces. They were collage kind of pieces. There was photography. So we made it a very broad kind of field for what sort of work
there were
we'd
some
accept.
political pieces in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about the physical gallery side of it. How did that come together? I mean, you had people traveling from all over the country to come and see this collection. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, the opening itself? I mean, it was, you know, we had been coming from a spot where we actually do shows every month, so the actual getting the artwork and hanging it and all that was not such a big deal, but you know, having Peter here and Peggy and that part of the event made it a lot more intense for us as gallery owners when we had a police officer here as well to make sure everything went well, because it was the first time we'd done anything like this. So like the size, you know, this, and you know, we got national coverage too. I mean, we were on CNN.com and some of the Disinfo, Dangerous Minds blog. There's a tattoo culture blog called Occult Vibrations we're also featured on. So it was like a lot, you know, it was a lot to deal with, but
Was the first time you got national coverage, right, for your gallery? Or
I think so.
So it was a
national exposure is nice, especially if it's not from like your cell phone or a dick slip or something.
Like legit national coverage. You know, that's a good thing.
Well, I wanted to give people a quick look at this if I can. I'm gonna go to my camera really quick just so you can get a better sense of this. But these are absolutely, of course, I turned to the one page that has no pictures on it. Just beautiful pieces.
Yeah, those are good pieces.
Coming all throughout this book. Is this still available for people to purchase?
We have there's like 23 per case, and I think we've got like a case and a half left. So that's
There's not many left.
No, that's it.
Okay.
So
where's the best place people can go to?
Well, I mean, howlbooks.net. It's also on Amazon in Canada, in the U.S., and may or may not be on Amazon in the U.K. But the best place to get it is just from the howlbooks.net website. And the price on it now is $100 because it's extremely rare now.
Right, especially with a very limited number left.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the new collection. And I'm going to put up this little banner that I stole from your website. So this is Psychedelic Blasphemy. How did this come about? Were you always planning on doing a second collection?
No, I hadn't really thought about it at all until the show happened and we were getting coverage and whatnot. But I think right at the end of December, I might have emailed Peter and said that I was going to send him a longer email soon.
Well, because before we had left, after the opening, we were heading back up to the Black House. And he said, well, maybe we'll do this again in a couple of years, and we'll think about that. And I was like, sure, that was really a great experience. The book came out fantastic. It was, very uplifting and all of that. And then you wrote and said, now we're not going to wait a year.
Well, I was like, if you wanted to do it as soon as next December, we could probably make it work.
And he was nice enough to say, okay, so what do you want to do this time? And my feeling about that was that because Thomas Thorne was the catalyst for introducing us and getting it going, his band, the Electric Hellfire Club, I tried to think what is the shortest phrase to encapsulate exactly what he does with that band, and hence Psychedelic Blasphemy. So, and I thought this allows us to tap into a past visual field of all kinds of interesting graphics and colors, and from comic to serious and Eastern cartoon influences. It's such a broad topic when psychedelic art started happening. So I mentioned that, and we thought also that it would inspire Thomas to maybe bring the Electric Hellfire Club back one more time. Because we'd sort of talked to him about that too when we'd been hanging out, and he was like, music is done. He does other things with his life aside from being a father and husband, he's in the arts fields, and he just really had no interest in really rekindling the band, even though people pester him all the time, like, when is it coming back? When's the new album?
Yeah.
And so he was like, no. And so this was kind of the final like pitchfork to say, so maybe one more time you could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't like ask him directly to like do a show.
No.
It was just like
kind of like we threw it out there just as sort of like a fishing trip to see if like it might set the fire, like we're kindling the thing. And he did. He we didn't. Yeah, exactly. We didn't ask him to do it, but suddenly he's like, "Well, I could do that." And I was like, "That's what we were looking for."
Yeah, and he was. And I talked to him quite a bit about possibly finding a large venue in Fort Myers that he could do a show. And there really weren't any venues that were acceptable as like a big reunion show venue in the Fort Myers area. There just aren't enough like cool clubs. So I had met a guy that booked shows at the Orpheum in Tampa. So I sent him Pete's info, Pete Olin, and they worked things out. So, but yeah.
Nice. So that's going to be part of the release event of the new book?
Yeah. So this year, obviously last year was a one-day event. We had the show, and then we had like a lunch or a dinner beforehand or afterwards. And this time, it's the way it worked out is a two-day event. So it's Tampa and Fort Myers. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours apart. It's not a huge drive. I drive up there pretty often for shows. But yeah, so on December 2nd, we've got Electric Car. We're going to do an art teaser and a book signing and a CD event release date too there. And then after that same day, like that's at 4, I think. And then we're going to...
What's that date?
That's December 2nd. And I think we're going to start it at 4 p.m. at Dysfunctional Grace. It's kind of a art gallery / taxidermy. They've got coffins and stuff like that. It's a cool place in Ybor City. It's like the old part of Tampa. So we have that earlier in the day. And then at night, we've got the concert a few doors down in Ybor at the Orpheum. So it'll be Electric Hellfire Club is the headliner. Then they have a special guest, Jinx Dawson from Coven, the original 60s satanic, hippie satanic band, I guess.
Yeah, kind of hippie satanic.
Hippie satanic,
They did that Black Mass album, which was...
and they were pretty groundbreaking. And then we also have Nathan Gray is going to perform, and Asmodeus X, which is a good friend of Thomas's. So it'll be a big show. And people who buy the book so far, the intent is that they'll be able to go upstairs to the balcony as like a VIP kind of thing. And
is it like a champagne room or something?
Nah, I don't think that's the kind of club the Orpheum is, but they got a bar and stuff up there. So, and then there's an after party too at the Castle, which is a club that Electric Hellfire Club actually has performed at in the past. So it's a full day event, and then the following day is down here in Fort Myers. So, and that's a little smaller show.
And that's sold out already.
And that's sold out. You can go to the beer release. There's a brewery that's doing a beer for us again, Bury Me Brewing, and they're right up front from us. And that's open to the public, but the actual show is sold out now.
The one here.
The one at the
Howl, Tampa one, there's still tickets. We should show the poster.
Yeah, the Orpheum show, you can still get tickets to it. This is the Woodstock-inspired Satanic Blasphemy 2-day event poster.
Can you bring it in a little closer?
No.
Zoom it in, nice.
And you can, we'll have some of these available. The bigger ones you can get in frame are only available on the website because they're a little bit more expensive to print. But we'll have some of these smaller ones available at the show if you want to, have somebody sign one for you if you come to the show.
Walk around all the. Are you one of the artists? Sign
that.
It's like a yearbook.
This is like a huge. It's like its own little Woodstock that you bring together. It's a pretty big event for a gallery release and a new collection. In book form.
Well, hopefully it's not as big as Woodstock because I don't think we're ready to deal with that amount of people and like the shower.
Well, didn't Florida just okay marijuana? So you may end up with a Woodstock.
It might be more psychedelic than we expected.
Yeah, there might be some. Yeah, there might be some weirdness.
Everyone's walking around with gummy bears, just popping candy, losing their minds. Well, that's. Are you ever afraid that you're blowing it up too much and the actual book itself becomes subdominant to the event?
No, because the book lasts all year long. It's
forever. You can always have it on your shelf and look at it. And the original. Event, aside from having the book too, we had a beer made for it.
Right.
Like that's also part of what we do. Bury Me Brewing And Bill Vaughn, who's the brewmaster over there, had talked to me about what kind of beer I might like. And we sort of went back and forth, and I came up with wanting a Belgian monk-style ale. And so he came up with a very special one for us, and Andy
that was
did
the first
artwork.
one. Yeah.
And so this year we have a diabolical Doppelbock. So we have and this year both are going to be bottled. The original one from last year has been rebrewed and even improved upon, I think. And the new one, which we tried just the other day, and if you look at your site, you've got some pictures of us sampling the new brew.
Yeah, that like the Howl books.
Yes.
Instagram has some photos up.
So that's excellent as well. And they'll be bottled with labels done by Andy.
Yeah.
And so people will be able to get those too.
Yeah. Well, it's cool too because the Bock style beer is typically associated with like horned, goats and sheep, I think.
Yeah,
too, maybe.
sheep and goat and stuff like that. So it's appropriate. So when you see the artwork for that, you'll see how we played into that. So we went back to something historic and did a takeoff on that for it.
That might make me get back to social media so I can see those images. That'd be pretty awesome. Well, let's go back to the books really quick here. This first collection, I mean, you were knocking around, just under 90 pages of artwork here.
Yeah, by about 60 artists. Yeah.
Yeah. So this new collection, Psychedelic Blasphemy. How big is this? How many artists do you have contributing? Do you have a number? Or
Yeah, okay. The page count is 144, so it's almost twice the size. And it's the same size book also. It's like if you put them
like a companion volume.
You put next to each other, they're gonna look pretty on your bookshelf. But the artist count is somewhere around 100 to 115, something like that. So it's quite a bit. It's almost double on both the page count and the amount of artists. So there's more on some of the pages. There's more art. We didn't want to fit in as much as we could, but we wanted everybody's piece to be as large enough and still accommodate everyone. So it looks good.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you can pre-order that right now, right?
Yeah, we're still taking pre-orders until the end of November. So you can get it now, and now is the only time that you can get a signed copy. We're not going to offer signed copies after it's released. So if you want Peter to sign your book, or me, you can ask for me too. You don't have to, but you can.
Let me sign your book.
I'm not signing that. Peter's signing it. Now is the only time you can get Peter to sign it, basically, unless you know him personally, or you're not going to run into him in public. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't hang out on street corners.
Just hang out at tattoo shops.
What's the price point for this the new book, the Psychedelic Blasphemy?
The basic edition is $66, and then if you want it signed, it's $86. So it's a $20 upcharge if you want the signature. Yeah. And we did that because it's a lot of work, honestly. Like, we've got photos of what we did last year, and it's a giant stack of books.
Yeah, I sit here and I've got piles of books all around me. I spend an entire day just like
hand cramps.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Your hand looks like this at the end.
Yeah, it was a little serious. I don't think either of us knew exactly what we were getting into. Well, Peter probably did, but it was new to me.
But it was great though, because they really facilitated it. Like, the stacks kept being brought in front of me, so I didn't have to get up and deal with it. I just sit there and just.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have it down better this year. It was a little bit crazy when people started showing up and wanting the books that were already signed, and I had to go through the boxes to try to find the book with their signature in it.
Well, I personalized them too the first time around.
Yeah.
Pretty much to people that I knew. So
it's not like we can just grab one off the stack.
Yeah. Are these going to be personalized to the ones you know?
I think so.
Well, most of them,
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
It's like, no, I got to stamp of my signature and just.
No.
That was my idea. We just needed a silver metallic ink pad and a personalized stamper. Or a self-inking stamper, even better.
No one would be the wiser.
Boom. No, we're not. We're better than that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the genre, the psychedelic blasphemy part of it. I've never equated the ideas of psychedelia with Satanism or devil imagery or blasphemy in general. I've always only equated it with sort of 60s hippie type movements. And so I was a little bit thrown back. I mean, from an artistic standpoint, you can do anything with that genre. But was there ever any concern that people may just not get the idea of it initially?
Well, we tried to explain it. Like when we decided to do the show, I created a description of what we were looking for and talked about basically the idea that in the 60s that people were trying to expand their minds and that it might be done through hallucinogens, it might be done through meditation, but the whole point was to go and shatter the current paradigms. So that kind of iconoclasm is inherently satanic because you're coming out of the 50s, going into the 60s where everything had been very rigid, everything had been ordered, everything had been pretty placid. You know, after the war, everybody had kind of settled down and was like, okay, it's the 50s, you know, mom's wearing pearls in the kitchen, it's, you know, Donna Reed or whatever. And suddenly the 60s are here and everything's gone wild. Music is changing. It's touching subjects that no one would dare touch on before. So in a certain sense, music and visual art was just completely shattering what existed and was considered to be of the devil by many people. You know, so that kind of went to a point where Anton LaVey was making the Church of Satan in that environment. But he comes out with a third side perspective. Because when you think of, okay, we're shattering things, but we're trying to be maybe more humanist. We're trying to be, you know, outre. What he then looked at and said, well, we could have discipline and be devils too. Because what he saw was that the sort of use of psychedelic, and also brought them out of contact with reality. That he felt that you would never use drugs as a magical thing because then you're making a self-delusion. You're losing yourself. You're getting addicted. Because in Satanism, it's always indulgence, not compulsion. So the idea of indulging in things that could open your mind was not a bad thing and actually could be helpful. And it created a certain kind of visual look because, like, especially with LSD, it created a sense of patterning that people didn't have beforehand. You will not find that in artwork before the 60s. This whole sort of genre of it became poster art, but serious art. So again, the iconoclastic aspect of it was very satanic. And also the Thomas Thorne connection, like he saw that himself when he created the Electric Hellfire Club and really drove that home and brought it into the current, you know, much more current times. Long past the 60s, he saw what aspects of that were truly satanic and ran with it. So with he and his band being the inspiration, it brought that focus back. Because I think a lot of people look and think, oh, just a bunch of sloppy hippies getting high. And, you know, that's not
there was some of that.
Well, yeah, there was some of that back then. But Anton LaVey cursed those people. Like, he got to a point where he said, enough is enough. This is becoming a complete bane to society. And he put a curse on it. And then, of course, the Manson murders happened.
Well, it sure did a bunch of homeless people, like, shooting heroin and stuff. I mean, it got bad, you know.
Yeah.
It was totally...
There's a lot of that movement's happening right now, too.
Yeah. What's always going on. But I mean, I think that post-60s, kids that grew up in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, maybe even now, I don't know, you know, there is like a counterculture thing in the, you know, the Church of Satan is a huge part of the counterculture, and then obviously hallucinogens, psychedelic stuff, you know, that, you know, people get into that a little bit, and the two things actually go together pretty well if you're trying to deprogram yourself as far as like, you know, growing up in American culture, you know, so much Christianity that's laid on you. Think that two things can, you know, not that I'm advocating that, but the two things can go together.
You heard him, everyone. Drop some acid right now.
Acid, the Satanic Bible. We're not advocating that. But I mean, there is like.
Well, I mean, it was a path for some people.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, and obviously, Thomas, you know, has been a little bit open about some of that. I mean, definitely for me, you know.
Well, and also Thomas talks very much about how he ran afoul of that.
Yeah.
Like that his indulgences became compulsions, and he had to fight with that, and he fought past it and won.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, it's about addiction, you know.
Journey. Yeah.
Having something riding you is never a good thing.
No.
Yeah. Well, let me give a quick shout out to the individuals watching right now. Gene, thank you, Turia and Mr. Spine Grinder. Great name. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Christopher, we're late getting back to you. M.A. Mandrake, good to see you, my man.
Woo.
Joe, Cameron, you guys are badass. Albert, thanks for stopping in. And I'm sorry if I missed anyone else. Jeffrey, thank you so much for tuning in. Unholier Than Thou, or Lorcan, thank you, man. Okay, so this is actually part of what I really love. Well, I mean, it's one of the things that I really love about Satanism. And it's probably one of the most misunderstood parts of Satanism is that there was never this pretension of, I have created this in a vacuum and it is all one in of itself and there is no connection with any outside world. it's well known and it's welcome, this idea that we take from culture, current and past, what works from structures, organizations, other groups, philosophers, what works, and we discard the rest. And so this idea of how this project came about with the idea of Psychedelic Blasphemy and with Electric Hellfire Club as an inspiration of it when Thomas first came to this understanding makes perfect sense from the inside. I'm sure it's still going to continue to confuse many of the sheep out there, but there's nothing we can do about that.
Confound and confused.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe it'll turn some people on that didn't even, you know, look at it before, too, so it's all good.
Yeah.
So it was asked really early on, but I thought it was a little too early to bring it up. Is there a third in the planning? A third Devil's Reign?
There'll be probably an announcement whether we're doing that or not after this one comes out. We don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, we don't want to give anything away.
Unless there's like a lot of dirty business that we got to deal with, you know, it's not, you know.
And, you know, if we told you, we'd have to kill you. So.
I'd choose life every time.
we got a trunk filled, just waiting for a body.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. You already have the trunk picked out too. Like it's all psychedelic, painted and everything. Just
it's actually a VW bus.
Nice.
But yeah, we're gonna hold off on making any further announcements until after this guy's over with, like this December show.
Yeah. Well, the book isn't all, and the concerts, events, the gallery openings, that's not all. There's also another really exciting piece here, and I'm hoping my computer's going to agree with me as I move over here. I'm running out of memory, it seems like. There's a Sinfonie, I can't speak, Sinistre. So, Magister Gilmore, could you please tell us a little bit about this?
That's the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, it's Symphonie Sinistre. The title's, of course, inspired by Symphonie Fantastique.
I was totally going to say that.
That's what I was going to say.
You know, put on the air.
French is my second or third language.
Actually, Reverend Gene Laverne has been working with me for a while to remaster old music of mine. When I was, I have a master's degree in music composition from NYU and a bachelor's too. When I was studying there, my graduate work, I worked with some amazing synthesizers in the 80s and a Buchla 100, which is a patch bay kind of thing. You can't really do tonal stuff, but you can make all these amazing patches that almost seem alive. And what was great about that is I could do similar things to the music that was written by the Barons for Forbidden Planet, which is a movie that's so satanic in theme and that it's the first fully electronic score, film score ever done. So that was a pivotal thing for me. And when I got to find a synthesizer that could do sounds like that, I was tremendously excited. So I created a lot of sounds and made a whole lot of music with that. They also had a Korg Poly 6, which had a keyboard. So you could do more tonal music with that. Because trying to do things tonal with the Buchla was like, forget it. You'd tune something and it would drift. You couldn't ever do anything tonal with that. It was just more for making wonderfully wild sounds. So what I had done is I had done rough mixes of most of my pieces to stereo on cassettes. They were multi-track recordings, but I put them on cassettes. And I played most of them for my classmates. In 1987, I did a cassette release of a bunch of that early music. It was called Darkscapes. And 3 of the pieces that are on this new album were on that. But there were 3 other pieces that had only been heard by myself and my classmates and no one else until I sent them to Gene. So Gene took them and really was excited by them so much that he spent so much time lovingly helping to restore the sound from the cassettes. But also, at the time that I did them and mixed them, the reverb technology was really primitive. You know, it was like the early 80s. So I had kind of hopefully envisioned more complex sound environments for them. So with contemporary digital technology, Gene could actually work with my pieces and give it the kind of exciting sound environments that I wanted, which could be, you know, something chamber sized to something like a cathedral. We can go back and forth in a single piece to be like that. But this way, my sounds were now put in a space and much more complex than I could do originally. So he really has a strong hand in engineering this album and bringing these pieces to life in a way that they had never been heard before. So we put it together. There are 6 movements. I sequenced them in a way that I think is a satisfying journey. And each piece is named after a location in Lovecraft's fiction. So the whole concept is, one of his stories is about a dream quest of Randolph Carter. And the idea is that he's this kind of sorcerer who can project himself astrally to different locations. So my idea for this album, this concept album, it's very trippy. You know, you basically are transporting yourself astrally to these various Lovecraftian locations, and then enjoying seeing them, but being horrified and trying to actually gain mastery of this ability. So in the beginning, you're kind of terrified and you're meeting strange consciousnesses and going to like frightening locations. But as time goes on, from the more rough and gestural sounds, more tonal things come in. So that the tonal represents the human part, the mastery of your ability. So when you finally get to the sixth movement, we sort of have a mysterious ending to the fifth. That's almost references Neptune from Holst the Planets. But then there's sort of a flute sound that comes in that's very human. And then I create then tonal stuff that's very energetic using the arpeggiator from the Korg that is kind of influenced somewhat by minimalism, but the harmonies change and are much more layered than early minimalism was. And that was at the early stages of minimalism in the 80s. So it was my take on minimalism. It kind of, it has a lot of energy towards the end. It has like a kind of sweep to it. It carries you. And so it's a triumphant conclusion to something that ends up being frightening in the early parts. And one particular movement, Yugoth, was the dark planet at the edge of our solar system, as Lovecraft just described it. And in the movie Forbidden Planet, the aliens in that, the Krell, were supposed to have come to the solar system because they were animals from Earth there on their world. So my thought was that they may have visited Yugoth and had a base or something there, so that particular movement has sounds that I drew that are very similar to Forbidden Planet. So it's kind of an homage to that score. So there's a lot of very subtle things. There are thematic aspects that carry through all the 6 movements and certain gestures that are repeated. But it's 40 minutes long. Yeah. And I think,
well, it has a vintage quality, and that's kind of what I thought when I asked Peter if he had something that we could put out, like, because I like vintage electronic music, like especially like Mort Garson stuff, like Black Mass album that he did, stuff like that, Bruce Hack, and I was listening to that, thinking about the book in the upcoming show, and thinking, you know, I know Peter is a music person, you know, so I wonder if I threw something at him, like an idea, like maybe we could do an album if he had something or could do something, you know. So I just threw it at him, and he already had it all, you know. It basically is exactly, it was exactly what I was thinking. So, you know, in that way, it's a little bit of magic, I think.
Well,
nice.
Also Gene really puts so much time in it. He's a complete audio sorcerer, and
yeah, no, I mean, it's super clean. You know, it sounds like perfect. You know, it does sound perfect.
So. Okay, so I love hearing the story behind it, and behind the different tracks in the sequence of event the tracks come in. Is this available right now? Is this a pre-order option?
It's a pre-order, but it's going to be out at the same time the book is out. So if you pre-order it now and you want to order the book, you can also add the CD on. It's a limited edition right now. It's a $30 CD. It's not going to be available online right away or in the, you know, right away at all, basically. So, I mean, buy it if you're interested. That's all I'm going to say, you know. And part of what we're wanted to do was have a thing, you know. Digital music is okay, but it's not like a thing. And I wanted a music thing to go along with the book. And you can, like, you know, put the CD in and listen to it while you're looking at the book. I mean, that's kind of like
turn on and tune out.
Yeah, so you can sit in your moon chair and put your headphones on and chill out.
That's great.
But yeah, it all works together, and you know, the vibe is very 60s in some ways, and you know, the book obviously in it. I mean, the book itself has, you know, like S. Clay Wilson in it, who is one of the founders of Zap Comics, which was the psychedelic underground comic in the 60s. So wow. I mean, it's pretty epic all around. And we got Winston Smith too, who's like punk rock collage god, you know, did Dead Kennedy's album covers. So I mean,
oh hell yeah,
all of it together is just really crazy, you know, and so magical in so many ways. I mean, that's what me and Peter keep talking about, is how this kind of just, it's so good, you know, all of it's just so good.
Yeah, it all came together really powerfully. Everything just sort of followed and fell into place, and
yeah.
So it's going to be, I think, a really good experience.
Yeah.
With dealing with something that is this large and we keep layering on more and more to it, do you ever feel that it's getting away from you as you know, the minds behind the events?
No, because I think we have some set of kind of like mental boundaries that, you know, it's not like we want to put out 5 albums and 3 books all at once. You know, this is like very, you know, this is very limited edition stuff, and it's very specific. You know, we have a book coming out, and there's also a CD that you can get if you want it.
Also, the Electric Hellfire Club is going to have a best of CD from their label, Cleopatra.
You can get that right now.
So that's something you can order right now. Because originally I think we were going to do like a split CD with stuff from Thomas and myself on it, but then we found out that his music was going to appear on something done by his label. Yeah. So then that just became just me on the CD.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, originally I only asked Peter, and then it worked out that Thomas was also thinking about something, so maybe we were going to do a split album. But it just didn't work out, but he already had that coming down the pipeline from Cleopatra anyway, so it all worked out perfect.
So yeah, music and art and and beer.
Yeah, and beer. I mean, it's just art. I mean, essentially what we're looking at is like a Church of Satan art project curated by the High Priest of the Church of Satan. I mean, that's what we're looking at. So it's visual art, it's audio, and there's also a beer component. So, I mean, that's all. I mean, I don't want any more than that. And I think that's pretty much covers the bases, you know? Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless we do a film, but a film is way too much money.
We could figure something out.
There is one more thing.
What?
The jacket.
Oh, well, you know.
That's part of clothing, too.
That's part of the art. Oh my God. It's part of the art project, you know, is like I wanted to do something that kind of was a throwback to the 60s, like bikers, Hells Angels, Ultima, like all the craziness that went on then. So I had back patches made, and originally, you know, like biker style back patches. So originally I was just gonna do a photo shoot, like that was kind of like Easy Rider, you know, like looking into the distance, you know, with the back patches visible as an advertising image. And then it's like, might as well sell them, you know? Yeah. So there's gonna be a few of us wearing them at the shows, so we'll get a photo.
Yeah, it'll be the Devil's Reign gang.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it'll be like it'll be pretty hardcore, but not really. You know, it's an art thing.
Yeah. So there is clothing too. So there's satanic fashion.
Yeah. We'll have T-shirts and stuff too.
There's some comments here I want to call out here. So Demented One asks, will Magus Gilmore be releasing more of his music in the future? And I want to give a quick shout out that there is currently a lot of Magus Gilmore's music available for free, and there's an entire album that's available right now on Underworld Amusements, I believe. Yeah. And just go to churchofsatan.com and look up music there. You'll find his free music there and a link to the album. But Magus Gilmore, do you have any more up your sleeve?
Well, there's other pieces that are being remastered still, and I'm gearing up right now to start writing new stuff. I'm kind of readapting my equipment, and I'm actually working on changing my compositional style somewhat. Having gone back to listen to my old material, which was done, again, in this sort of more gestural way, I had moved into more orchestral tonal stuff. I'm working at trying to bring those two worlds together right now. So that will be future pursuit of mine. Spend a good deal of time in 2017 working on that.
The short answer is yeah. He's going to do some more cool music.
That's awesome. Let me ask you a personal question really quick here, Magus Gilmore. Is being a part of galleries or books collections, curating them, do you think that that's important as the High Priest of the Church of Satan to be out there and finding projects of worth and being a part of that? Do you think that's an important part of, this may sound a little pompous, the office of the High Priest?
Well, you know, it's not a requirement. Like Dr. LaVey didn't do things like that, but since these are aspects of my life and my creativity, it seems very natural for me to do these projects that are involved with music and art. Because I started out when I was young as an artist. I drew, I did collages. That's always been a major part. And then I actually moved into filmmaking, so there will probably be some films coming up too. Oh, and So I've done a lot of different things creatively over the years, and the Church of Satan does take up a lot of my time. And really, I hadn't intended to be a writer at first at all, and that's something that just kind of developed out of necessity. Which kind of is sort of, when you read about Dr. Lay, it was the same with him. Yeah. That he had never intended to be a writer, and then suddenly the ideas had to be put out there, and he started writing and did it. And pretty much the same for me. I had done like some little fiction and stuff here and there, but then having to really communicate my thoughts and become an essayist was necessity, and you can judge how well the results are.
Fantastic. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, music and art are, at the foundation, I think.
Yeah. Well, again, Satanism definitely has an aesthetic component. Anton LaVey was a musician, and he could also draw and paint. So, which is again why we were friends. That when we met, we could compare notes, and when we started drawing, because like he drew as a kid and did all these amazing things and similar things to what I did. We design architecture, we do fantasy things, you draw vehicles. I think I did, he did monsters too. So like he's like a 10, 11, and 12. And he was doing same kind of things. So we would look at each other and go, yeah, we're very much similar person in how we approached the world when we were young and where we developed. He moved in, he could do classical stuff, but he moved into the popular music of his time and finding meaning in it. For me, I never really got into the popular music of my time. And I think being an outsider, I gravitated to obscure classical music. And that to me was, I became part of an alien elite by, oh yes, I could, talk all about the Mahler symphonies and all the various versions of all the Bruckner symphonies. And oh, the latest Shostakovich, this symphony just came out, in the 70s, and I was listening, like he just wrote this. And so few of the people I knew around me had any inkling as to any of this stuff. Yeah. So for me, that was the sort of grimoire and black magic of finding this stuff that no one else around me was interested in.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, let me ask you really quick. Where does your passion for art come from? And I don't want to hear just because I'm a tattooer. I mean,
oh no, I mean,
depth here.
I was always encouraged to be interested in art, and pursue it as a kid. My mom was very supportive. I had really good art teachers even in kindergarten, where I was doing ceramics, and my kindergarten teacher took one of my pieces over to one of her shows in Russia at one point. I mean,
what?
Yeah, I'm kindergartner that
has
has
why the
Russia.
Russians hate us? They're like, we didn't know.
That Howl gallery is no good.
We will stop them.
No, but I was always encouraged. I was taking private art lessons in middle school. It was always the only thing that I had a passion for. I played drums a little bit in middle school, but I quickly, put that aside and went right back into visual art. So, I mean, growing up, it was always comic books and paintings were my two things. And then I ended up going to college for comics. So, and and music too. I might not have been a musician, but I was always very passionate about, I loved heavy metal, I loved Iron Maiden, that kind of stuff. So, and it's not like I just kind of like decided to be a tattooer later on in life and didn't have any art background.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's not actually that's fairly normal nowadays because there's so many people in the tattoo world that just kind of got into it later in life. I mean, not that you can't be a great tattooer and find it later in life, but yeah, I mean.
Right. You can just call out some names. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that.
This person sucks. That's what I'm trying to say.
No. But it's just a natural thing for me. I always wanted to be, doing my own thing as an artist. And then when I discovered tattooing in college, it just was, it was like a magnet, and that and my counterculture kind of interests, and Satanism had always been part of my life, going back to high school. It was just, I don't know. I mean, being able to meet Peter, and I did an Electric Hellfire Club for Thomas back in the 90s, and that's kind of all this matured was through that. But
it's got deep roots.
Yeah, so it's like and even when I got on the internet, I had people that were left-hand path oriented that helped get me like on my first website back in the late 90s, and when I was selling T-shirts and stuff like that. So it's always been at the core of who I was, and so I think that just it organically happening and coming together, I think that even before Peter came down, I was like, I looked him up on Wikipedia trying to figure out how I could get a hold of this guy, but it's like, you can only go so far without knowing people on a personal level. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just an organic thing. I mean, what we're doing is very, I I'm established in Fort Myers too, so it's not like I just appeared out of nowhere and started doing satanic art shows. It's like, I created I helped create the local art walk and started other events for downtown Fort Myers. So
you're part of the business community here.
yeah, I mean, I was on the board of the downtown event committee, and I've won business awards from magazines locally and things like that. So just it's all it was all organic. There was I wasn't like trying to do something that I had no actual personal interest in. It's all like just the ultimate project for me.
Also, that's why I was so happy to work with Andy, because he has such a great pedigree for all the things that he does. And I've got to say that he's one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with, because as a businessman, he's focused in doing a project. If there's any hiccups or any hurdles, he just smashes through them. He doesn't complain. He doesn't whine. It's always just like, gonna fix that, gonna make it work.
Let me ask though, is it like a Hulk smash, or is it like the Kool-Aid man coming through the wall?
It's like a subtle, like there's no sound effect at all. It's just me taking care of business.
Yeah, that's it exactly. But that's the amazing thing is that so many times you work with people and they get all head up about something, and then the littlest thing happens and everybody's like, whining and complaining and then but it's like, we got to fix it. Like, so stop that and let's fix it. And Andy, you don't have to, he just fixes it. It's done. Like when we were dealing with the show, pieces hadn't shown up or frames were broken, and he just like bang, bang, bang. It's all done. Because when I laid out the first exhibition, we had people helping to do, hang it. And, they were just like, oh, wait, that piece doesn't work. That's cracked. We got to fix that. So you remedied everything immediately. It was really a pleasure, a dream, really, to work with.
Yeah, well, it helps having art stores around where you can actually afford the frames, and they've got glass and mats, and they're the same same size of the picture that you've got.
Let me go back to the audience here really quick, because we have a question from Pascal asking, will there be a European tour for the art show?
The thing with the art shows is that they're really expensive, especially if you're not selling much art. So it's more likely that there will be a book event, like,
We'll send you a book.
Well, no, like, we could do
like a book signing.
A book signing. Yeah. That's a lot easier to do than an art show. With an art show, you have to have a facility and you have to have money behind it in order to make it feasible for the people involved. We did 2 shows last year, one in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and then another one the following month at
in Cambridge.
In Cambridge at Iridano's Tattoo.
So we
Gallery.
shrunk the show a little, the original Devil's Reign show, so that we had to take out the 3D pieces. So we made it a little more concentrated so it could travel to 2 different locations.
But it was still a pallet of art, and it went up on a semi. So it was like, it's still a big deal. And they, paid for a large part of the shipping. I covered some of it too, but it's just a lot to deal with, and it's expensive. Plus, we paid for our own plane travel stuff. If we did a show in like Europe or like even on the West Coast, we would have to have someone backing it, that didn't necessarily need to make a bunch of money off of it, or knew a lot of buyers that were interested in the tattooing and underground type artwork that we've got in the book. So it's more realistic to say that we could do a book signing event, and Peter.
But if there are any moneyed galleries out there who would really like to host a subset of the Psychedelic Blasphemy show and willing to pay for the shipping and such, it could be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, event that a lot of people are actually interested in, and everybody wants to meet Peter and have him take their picture with Peter and have him sign their books and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a thing, and you don't get to meet Peter normally, Like, okay, this is the 50th anniversary, but the couple of private events that we've had are, still private. This is like one of the only things that's like, you might be able to meet, the high priest. So
well, let's reach out to President Trump. Maybe he can have Mexico pay for it, and we'll get this thing overseas. This can happen, people.
It'll be in Guadalajara. And then the wall will close and they won't let us back in. That'll be the trick.
Fools! Yeah, you fell for it. Let me give a quick shout out to Sadie. Thank you so much for joining us live. Adrian, I missed you before. H.R. Larson, of course, Dews and Pascal. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. By way of closing down the conversation, what has audience or consumer reaction been thus far, and from the first book to this upcoming book release, do you think it's grown? Has it surpassed your expectations?
Oh yeah, for sure it's grown. I mean, I think it's I don't want to say there's twice as many people that are interested, but I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, I'm doing marketing, normal stuff on Facebook and Instagram, so there's definitely, you know, on top of what we got last year, there's that many more people that are seeing it, you know. And obviously, if we're continuing to do this as a normal thing every year, potentially, then, you know, there might be, you know, there's going to be that many more people every year that are interested in it. But not saying that we're doing that. We haven't we're not releasing that information right now. Right. But it would be tremendous.
It's happening.
It would be tremendous if we released that information. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, the amount. I mean, there's no one has anything bad to say. Like, there's no bad reviews out there. It's all top-notch stuff. The book came out top-notch. The art in it is top-notch. So it's like, how can there be anything but excitement? You know,
The beer is top-notch.
the beer is top-notch.
I want to try that beer so bad.
It's delicious.
Well, it is being bottled this year.
There are bottles. I don't know what the laws are about shipping beer, but there might.
Don't talk about it. Just ship it.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we got to say. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Congratulations on the huge success of the first book, and I'm really looking forward to the second one. I'm really looking forward to the album. I'm not going to be able to make it out there, but I'm going to be there in spirit. What does that fucking mean? So thank you so much for joining me on this episode and for sharing the project. Can you guys give us one last hit on the dates and the best place to learn a little bit more info and pre-order?
Okay, so you can still pre-order the book. You can still get a pre-ordered signed copy if you order now before the end of November, and that's at howlbooks.net. You can also buy Peter's CD there, pre-order it, and it will ship with the book if you pre-order both. The book release party is December 2nd in Tampa at the Orpheum and at Dysfunctional Grace Gallery. They're both in Ybor City, just a couple doors down from each other. And then the info for that is also on the howlbooks.net site. You can still get tickets to that. And then the following day, it's Saturday, December 3rd, we've got a sold-out event, burlesque and concert event at Howl Gallery.
So yeah, you didn't mention the burlesque.
Yeah,
part.
well, the burlesque is pretty much what everybody came for, you know, and Peter and burlesque.
Wait, is Peter in the burlesque?
No, but yeah.
We don't want it to be scary.
Yeah, there might be some fake blood flying around, though. We're not sure yet. And then there's the beer release earlier in the day, and that is still a public event. You can come to that and taste the beer, drink a lot of the beer, buy the bottles.
Because Bury Me Brewing is just around, it's in the same...
Yeah, we're in kind of like an L-shaped plaza, and we're kind of in the old back part of the plaza, and Bury Me is like up on the front, on the main road. It's on US 41, which is the main road on the west side of Florida. So Bury Me is at the front of the plaza, we're at the back. So it's kind of like when we both have parties at the same time, it's like having a big block party.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck with this entire event.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we thank everybody who showed up to participate in the chat room, too. Thanks for everybody for being part of it.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, let me do a little bit of outro here for the audience. If you want to learn a little bit more, again, howlbooks.net, you're going to find virtually everything there, or literally everything there for all the information. Thank you so much for tuning in live, asking your questions, or just having side conversations in the chat room. I've been trying to pay attention, but it's a little hard to have my foot in both these conversations. So again, thank you so much for participating in these shows. And if you ever want to learn about upcoming shows, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the first and foremost thing you should be doing. But you can also sign up to the email list, and you can get notified before any episodes come out, who it is, what we're talking about, and when it's going to go down. So thank you all so much for your support. And until we can chat again, gentlemen, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.